Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the Musings from the Mount podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Carenza. In this episode, we wrap up our 4-part journey through the food for thought section of Ponder on This, and we saved some of the heaviest material for last. In this discussion, we tackle this fascinating idea that we are living in the age of revelation of the mysteries, but not through more books, rather through those moments when ancient wisdom suddenly becomes lived experience. We also explore some challenging territory about the temporary nature of all forms, including our own bodies, and what it means to make difficult decisions and choices in life, particularly when loved ones disapprove. And we examine the difference between being a spiritual seeker who just constantly asks, "Tell me more," versus someone who is simply ready to just get to work, chop wood, carry water. This is the kind of dialogue that might just shift how you see everything from your daily attachments to your role in this unfolding evolutionary moment we are co-creating together. And we hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you do enjoy this podcast, please consider going to meditationmount.org and donating. Your donation helps us to bring you this podcast as well as all the other programs the Mount produces both today and in the future. We're incredibly grateful and honored by your support. Okay, now back to the podcast in part 4 of Food for Thought. So today we return to the Food for Thought buffet for our fourth trip to this particular section. And well, it's not the dessert bar. We're going to round out this return.
It's not eat all you can. It's digest all you're able to and then apply it.
Yeah. And this has been particularly for myself, this has been like one of my favorite things we did because I'm so enamored with this section. It's one of the things I return to the most. It was my into the Alice Bailey. It's probably one of the sections I've spent the most time with because it's very interesting because they put together this whole book, Food for Thought, picking and choosing all these carefully selected sections. And then there's this like secret, like it's almost like a secret chamber. Or like the beginning part is like almost the best of the best in this like tightly packed little section.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great place to explore if you haven't, if you're just joining us, if this is the first time you've ever heard this podcast. We take a lot of different formats, but occasionally we do something. We will drop into a text, or in this case, ponder on this, and we'll just kind of like work our way through it not in an academic way, but in a very just two people sitting and talking about this text.
I see it as though these are seeds of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and we're allowing them to unfold in the space that we've created for this podcast, and which is also held by those listening.
Yeah. And if if you are new to this podcast, it's like, I kind of feel like sometimes when you're a musician, you try to make the record that doesn't exist between two records. I wish that record, if the drumming on this record and the horns on this record, I feel like this podcast was for me, is a way in to these teachings in a way that didn't exist before. And so it's kind of like a way to kind of walk together through some of this stuff.
That's a really interesting point, Joey, because we're told that the age we're in at the moment is the age of the revelation of the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that more books are going to be published. The revelation of the mysteries is going to be revealed. How are things revealed? By having that aha moment when what we read comes alive inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
and we own it.
Yeah.
So the mystery, and in fact, the first sentence that we're going to read from Esoteric Psychology 2 reinforces that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, this is our fourth sitting. And we love the menu at the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what it says, one simple sentence. A mystery only remains a mystery when ignorance and unbelief exist. There is no mystery where there is knowledge and faith.
Mm.
It's as though there's this continuous unfolding of that which is hitherto unknown,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes known through a deep knowing. And that's why we talk about esoteric knowledge is hidden knowledge. But if you go back a couple of hundred years, what was deemed to be esoteric then A lot of it's esoteric now.
Mhm.
It's been revealed. It's on the outside. It's been lived. It's been experienced. It's been proved scientifically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and on that point, just the fact that they've done various kinds of brain scans and MRIs of like monks who meditate, and it was all for how many thousands of years monks have been meditating, and saying this works, but you'd be like, oh, whatever, that's hogwash. But no, you stick a monk in an MRI, and you're like, look, it's working. It's changing your brain.
Or because we confuse it with the situation, or they're locked away meditating somewhere. They're not participating in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're participating in the world of thought. And they are generating positive energy in the realm of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're being asked to do both. Generate positive energy as far as new thought forms of possibilities, and then to grow them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just throwing the seeds, we're also being asked to cultivate them and have them come alive in our own lives. I think that the revelation of the mysteries isn't something that's going to appear on the big screen somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be revealed inside of us as we dare to apply what has been given throughout the ages as this wisdom teaching.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of thing to think about for just a second, because when we think of revelation and we think of the mysteries being revealed, there's, I think, almost a knee-jerk kind of reaction to immediately look outwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the revelation is going to become broadcast from the inside.
Well, it goes back to David Bohm and the enfolded universe. The enfolded universe is everything packed into a particle of infinity, and you plant it in the fields of time and space, and it naturally unfolds. So we've used this phrase before. Our task is to unfold the unfolded.
Yeah.
That is the revelation of the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it by living it.
Right. Absolutely.
Not just by cogitating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a part too that's not to be overlooked. It's not just like, okay, here it is. No, it's here's the start of your action journey of living and being the thing that is revealed.
And every now and again, it comes back and reemphasizes the fact that energy follows thought.
Mm.
And the whole of the universe is held together by a thought form.
Yeah.
Whether it's the movie The Matrix, living inside the Matrix, which is held together by a coded configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the coded configuration that we're familiar with is called creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this next one, still from esoteric psychology too, another sentence: power, selfishly used, exhausts its user and evokes a display of power antagonistic to him. He is thereby destroyed because he has destroyed. So this goes back to power is simply that quantum of energy required to carry out a higher purpose. And we can draw upon as much as we like, as long as we're carrying out a higher purpose. It goes back to the Chinese saying, as you can have as much power as you like, as long as you don't use it for yourself.
Mm.
So power is universal energy you draw upon to be a co-creative partner.
Yeah.
It's not to aggrandize the self or to grab power. Because if you grab power, the power's original intent is to carry out the deep dream and the deep desire of the creator. So if we aggrandize ourselves by appropriating this for selfish means, it'll destroy us, because that wasn't what it was intended for.
Mm.
We sort of stolen the fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get burned.
Yeah, I also like how this kind of it brings up intentionality too. Like, there's, the use of power, the use of will. We can't really exist without those things. We're energetic systems.
We are. And evolution is growing into a greater state of wholeness, awareness, and embodiment. And at the same time, it means letting go of stuff that no longer serves, which is what the next sentence from esoteric psychology sort of lays out for us.
Okay.
Every step forward in evolution, and therefore towards the spiritual goal, is always at a cost, and through the relinquishing of that which has hitherto been held dear.
Yeah.
Now you could see this as, well, yeah, but I've worked all my life for this. You mean I got to give it up? So I'm sacrificing things that is rightfully mine, I've earned, and you're telling me I've got to let go of them. What you're letting go of is that which no longer serves, because you're entering into a new state of awareness that allows you to be an even more powerful co-creator and create new forms. And when the forms have served their purpose, as we know, they get recycled.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't understand the role of death and rebirth in the regenerative cycle, and also what it means to be inside a form. So this is the big tussle on Earth. We are spirit living in dense physical matter.
Mm-hmm.
And do we identify with the material aspect of the vehicle that we're occupying? Do we identify with that which is seeking to express itself through the material vehicle? And it's always a question of identification. And therefore, identification says that if I no longer need something, I let go of it because it is not my identity. It was a temporary construct or a temporary instrument that helped me do the work, that helped me gain more enlightenment. But when it served its purpose, just like the flowers in the garden, when they produce the seeds for the next year, they break down and die, and you put them on the compost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this sort of that old analogy, like, you can use a boat to cross a river, but when you get to the other side, you have to get out of the boat.
Right.
And then, so, it's like it's also interesting to look at cycles. I think we can pretty much fairly easily understand like the cycles in nature because we see it. We see fall comes, the leaves turn yellow, but it's a little bit harder to look inward and see cycles of thought and cycles of things and how it works, even cycles of emotion, how sometimes these emotions don't serve you anymore and it's time to let them sunset.
And the reason you know that is because you keep bumping into things
Yeah.
and things keep bumping into you.
Yes. They have a habit of doing
They
that.
do.
Yeah, you can pull a geographic, but they tend to follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, and when you were saying about crossing the river and
Yeah.
you have to get out of the boat, I was reminded of that wonderful story of there were two monks walking through the wood and they came to a river and there was a young maiden standing there and she asked for help to get across. So one of the monks said, yeah, I can carry you across on my back. And so he carried this young lady across the river on his back and he put her down and they carried on walking. Half an hour later, the other person says to the monk, how could you carry that woman? You're being tempted. He said, brother, I put that woman down on the other side of the riverbank. Obviously, you're still carrying her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's that goes back to power, like the power selfishly used section.
Yes.
Just that he was using his agency and his power in that moment to do a thing, and then have left it behind.
Well, I think this whole section here from esoteric psychology is going to reinforce what you've just said.
Yeah.
Because the next sentence simply says, human beings are innately kind when their minds are not distorted and their vision impaired by the false teaching of any selfish interest, political propaganda, and racial or religious difficulties.
Mm, yeah.
That sums up the world situation, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we're seeing that writ large right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, we, that's also a kind of a thing too, where if you make something your entire personality, I mean, like that's, it's hard sometimes because you are sort of negating the possibility of any new information or any evolution of information.
And selfishness usually leads to retaliation, revenge.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this cycle of revenge have a grip on the world at the moment.
We sure are.
And it's we've addressed this in another podcast, but I think when you read that human beings are innately kind, it goes back to what the Greeks saying. Inside of us, we have this holy trinity, truth, goodness, and beauty. And it wants to reveal itself. And it needs an artist to reveal it. We're the artist.
Yeah.
We have to create of our lives an artistic expression. At the moment, we're still in hunter-gatherer mode. We're still in warfare mode. We don't understand that we're here to create this beautiful society. By beautiful, I mean in the sense of truth, goodness, and beauty, where beauty is the revelation of truth through an act of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So human beings are innately kind. Well, if you don't believe that, there's no way out.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's sort of a first principle, foundational kind of thing, and and I think you can also see it too when you see like little kids play together, and like when they're before they've had too much conditioning, they'll generally play well together and work it out. They have a like inherent sense of fairness, and then the world sort of has their way with them, and then we get where we are today, where we're basically still just a bunch of children, on the playground trying to figure this thing out.
But that's my toy.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So we're going to be exploring a lot more about immersion in form,
Mhm.
because that's who the soul is, encased in form, not imprisoned, but encased. That's its vehicle of expression. But unless the soul controls the outer form, it does become a prison. And so we're going to be taking a couple of paragraphs from esoteric healing.
Mm.
Disease and death are essentially conditions inherent in substance, just as long as a man identifies himself with the form aspect, so will he be conditioned by the law of dissolution. Basically saying forms are temporary.
Yeah.
They're temporal.
Mhm.
They're not permanent. If they were permanent, we
Yeah.
couldn't evolve.
Right. Yeah. It's that the illusion is we assume that, just because our lifespan is maybe X amount of years, that's everything. And this, yeah.
So it says, this law is a fundamental and natural law governing the life of the form in all the kingdoms of nature. When the disciple or initiate is identifying himself with the soul, and when the antakarana is built by means of the life principle, then the disciple passes out of the control of this universal and natural law and uses or discards the body at will. So there's a higher will that says, time to let go, time to regenerate.
Mm.
But if we don't have that higher impulse, we hang on to everything that we have achieved, not realizing that forms are temporary.
Mm.
They're not meant to be held on to. They're meant to be utilized to reveal the mysteries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty heavy passage, and uses or discards the body at will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just want to pause there for a moment, just thinking, if when you really get into, and this can kind of turn your mind around when you really get into the concept of Maya or illusion, of course, you keep coming back, and you can come and go, and your connection is, or as Leonard Cohen says, we are so lightly here.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there's another paragraph from
Mhm.
esoteric healing that continues the theme.
Yeah.
Release from the threefold form, that means the physical, emotional, and mental realms,
Mhm.
is ever regarded by the spiritual man as the greatest possible good, provided it comes to him under law as the result of his spiritual destiny and of karmic decision. It must not come as an arbitrary act or as an escape from life and its consequences upon the physical plane, or as self-imposed.
Okay, so that could be maybe a little confusing. Maybe we should
Okay.
dissect that
So
a
what
little
does
bit.
it mean to you, Joey?
Yeah, so release from the threefold form, I mean, this is for me, it's always kind of saying like you can't like use a cheat code, like if this is for a video game,
Well,
or
it simply means that the form
Mhm.
is there to serve the indwelling life.
Right.
So activate the indwelling life, and that will cause the forms to regenerate naturally.
Okay.
If you hold on to the form,
Yeah.
you're going to either go down with the ship, or it's going to be a breakup of the forms eventually, or you try to preserve the forms.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
you put yourself in some sort of suspended animation.
Right. So like the idea of like sort of cryogenically freezing yourself, you're
But
missing
it's
the whole point.
when that first came, when people say, "Oh yeah, we're going to cut his head off and save it," and then later on, when science has figured out a way, we're going to. I think you don't even understand the function of the brain. The brain
Yeah.
is is an organ that processes the mental. The mental is not hardware;
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's software.
Yeah.
And the big cloud storage is the soul, the Akashic records.
Yeah.
So people that think if you cut your head off and freeze it and you can carry on living, we carry on living by reincarnating.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we don't have the same old head on us. Hopefully, we've earned the right to upcycle the form.
Yeah. So even though it sounds kind of grim and morbid, basically these are passages telling you that, it's okay. You don't
It's okay to die.
Yeah.
I remember somebody saying, "Oh, I really want to be reborn," and I sort of facetiously, I hope it wasn't too heavy, saying, "Well, then hurry up and die."
Right.
Well, then let go.
Yeah, let go. Yeah.
I say that to myself as well.
I-
What are you
I-
holding on to, Michael? What are you
mean,
holding on to?
I do too. I mean, I definitely, didn't expect to live this long. So my attachment to this life is very, very, tangential, tenuous. But I find that there's also great relief in this kind of these passages, in the sense of like, you don't have to fret about every little thing. We were before the episode, we were kind of talking about how we keep noticing more and more people have gotten work done on themselves, like cosmetic work.
Cosmetic surgery.
Yeah, and it's an interesting topic because you're attaching yourself to this form, and you're attaching your sense of self and worth to something that is by design supposed to be temporary.
Yes. And I was just thinking there was an episode of The Twilight Zone where there were these doctors or surgeons operating on a woman, and you couldn't see, all you see is the back of the surgeons.
Yeah.
They were operating on this woman who was like blonde, and they said, "Look, don't worry, we're going to make you look more beautiful."
Yeah.
And then as they were working, doing the surgery, they panned to the surgeons, and they were pigs.
Right. So
It was like, so what do you mean? But what is beauty?
yeah.
Beauty is when the inner truth reveals itself through love.
Yeah.
It's
And for our potential younger listeners, the Twilight Zone was like the Black Mirror of the past. So
absolutely.
yeah.
This is a very interesting passage taken from the Rays and the Initiations.
Okay.
Can one take life? I think not. Life is, capital I, capital S. Life is. Naught in heaven or on earth can touch or affect it. This is a point oft forgotten. Then it says, italicized, life cannot be taken in the spiritual sense. Life is impregnable. It cannot be taken or destroyed, but passes on from form to form experience to experience, until the perfect will of the Creator is expressed through that life.
This is a heavy passage. And this is the kind of stuff that was why I love these sections so much. That idea of life as being eternal, or that spark being eternal.
It doesn't give you the right to kill.
Right.
It basically says life, the spirit cannot be killed. You can take out its forms, and that causes delay and rebuilding. It's like sometimes you see an ant's nest and the kid comes along and knocks it over. What do the ants do? They rebuild it.
Yeah. 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 And this thing just keeps moving on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And this next paragraph, I mean, we if you want, we can stop occasionally because this is a lot. I know this is our fourth visit to the buffet table here. Hopefully we've had some digestive enzymes in between.
I really like how this addresses, and these are some fundamental questions, so I don't think that we're breezing over them. But for me, it's kind of like these gentle waves of affirmation of like, yeah, this is okay. This is how you start to, in the sense of energy follows thought, you start to almost disembark. You start the process now, not like when you're, in the emergency room or like, because by then you should already be prepared. This is just the time to switch over.
And as we said, this is the time of the revelation of the mysteries. It's also a shift from one age to another. We've mentioned before the shift from Kali Yuga to Satya Yuga, from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. This is a major threshold.
Yeah.
So this next passage, which is taken from Education in the New Age, addresses that. We are passing through one of the great natural transitional periods of this time, or at this time. We are laying the foundation for the emergence of a new species of human being, a more highly evolved unit within the human family, hence much of our problem, and much of the present failure to meet the demands of the race, the human race, and to measure up to human need for development. Now, this could sound like genetic manipulation, but what we're saying is that spirit now needs a whole new configuration of matter through which to express. And I know that I've noticed with some of the children that are coming in now, I'm looking at my grandkids, they're wired differently.
Absolutely.
They've got more integrated circuitry in them than I had.
Yeah. I've noticed that too. They're amazing, these little humans that are coming along. Yeah.
Because it's a prototype. Because everything is building to a greater expression of the truth that lives inside. Therefore, you need more capable instruments. Therefore, the building of a new human being is not some sort of conspiratorial experiment. It's the natural evolution.
Yeah. I also tend to see this too as like, so we're passing through these great cycles. I think of it in terms of like a clock cycle on a computer. We're trying to get all these calculations done at the last minute before the cycle closes, right? So, we're trying to, it's almost like you're trying to rush the shipment before the last shipping day at Christmas.
Well, I remember 2000 when the started, when we thought everything would disappear.
Right.
Y2K.
Yeah. And it was, we didn't, it's that same kind of thing where you're not sure. I mean, what's going to happen, but, the clock cycle continues.
But what it points out to Joe is that we have to have two levels of awareness. One is we have to be aware that we're the soul.
Okay.
And then we have to be aware that we are in a vehicle that is at a particular stage of development. And there's a gap between the ideal and what we're currently able to realize, the ideal and the real. And this next paragraph from Education in the New Age sort of spotlights this. Your vision is oft distorted by the pain and suffering to which the form is subjected, either your own or that of others, individually or en masse, so that you do not see clearly the purpose and the urgency of the life within the form. So are you responding to the compelling call of the soul, and therefore you're willing to change your life, the forms of your life, but you're not willing to go off course as dictated by the soul and its navigational equipment?
Yeah. And that isn't that the thing? Like your vision is oft distorted by the pain and suffering to which the form is subjected, but that's also the path.
Because we've said the pedagogical approach on earth is joy and wisdom through pain and suffering. Not because that we're here to be punished, but that's the nature of living at this dense level of matter. For spirit to inhabit this matter, it's said that the enlightened ones, the masters of wisdom, if they were to incarnate now, or if they were to sort of precipitate into this form, it would be very painful for their body. It'd be like a diver going to the bottom of the ocean. Unless you've got a diving suit on, the pressure is incredible.
Yeah. And that's the lessons. And in that same sense, as the lessons can only be learned in this arena. And hence, that's why you're here, is to progress through this arena and work out all these distortions.
And then it throws in some useful hints
Okay.
here. Accidents to individuals are the result, usually, of an explosion of force. And these explosions are caused by the hatreds and the unkind thoughts and the critical words of those involved in the accident. I remember that movie, The Accident.
Yeah.
Where it showed the correlation of the interweaving all the different lives.
Yeah, I also love that sort of that movie format where it goes through and shows you from different perspectives the same event. It's used by Kurosawa and a bunch of other directors. But it's fascinating because you really start to see how everything is from a different perspective. But then at the same time, when you watch the movie, by the second or third time through the timeline, your observation of this is now shifting because you already know what's going to happen, and now it's starting to like kind of rebuild back on itself.
Well, the soul is the choreographer.
Yeah. Yeah, the soul's, yeah.
And then one of our favorite little reminders comes next. By holding, man loses. By relinquishing, he gains. By seeking to grasp that which he has, it must and will inevitably disappear.
And that is some ancient wisdom.
That is some ancient, and if you don't believe it, try it.
Yeah,
Go out and test it.
This is one of the more testable hypotheses or ideas, and we find that to be true. It's. I mean, every culture everywhere has almost the same story, or the same idea.
And we're not talking about physical objects. It could be emotional attachments, but also, as we've hinted at before, the most difficult thing to let go of and to be aware of that we need to let go of is our beliefs. Because we believe our beliefs to be true.
Yeah, of course, because you wouldn't if you did. You wouldn't hold a belief that you didn't think was true.
It's not a fluid, liquid, crystal, dynamic belief. It's a fixed, crystallized belief.
Right.
And then we hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that tries to break it down or question it, we defend it with our life because we're identified with it. Mm-hmm. Whereas life doesn't need to be defended; it needs to be revealed.
Yeah.
So. These are sort of, this is like the wise uncle or the wise aunt or the wise grandma. Look,
they're kind of like the Trans-Himalayan, like Alice Bailey koans, kind of,
right.
The little mysteries and things like that,
Dear Abby.
Yeah.
Dear Alice.
Dear Alice.
So, that was similar here. Be content with your duty and the immediate service which will lead you a step further upon the way to which you are ordained. And this way you can travel rapidly and with eager feet, or slowly with lagging steps. Mm-hmm. It's up to you how swiftly you move.
Mm-hmm. I also find this interesting when stuff like this pops up, though, like that when to which you are ordained, and like almost again, where this is for me, this is one of those things that is a personal area of interest, is the mix of predestination and free will. So it's actually both. Like it's almost like you've agreed to go through this like a choose your own adventure, but you've already decided, this is going to be the plot path. But then your free will comes into how do you play the game?
Right, because if you look at the root of ordained, ord, O-R-D in the Scandinavian means the word, and we go back to the word is that which gave rise to creation. Mm-hmm. So if you've been ordained, the word has called it forth.
Yeah. Okay.
And then your freedom is when and how you agree to cooperate with what you've already set in motion.
Yeah.
As it says, you can do it rapidly or you can do it with lagging steps.
Yeah, I think of like in the progression of video games where there are the video games where it's like an open world where you can choose to, there are like quests within the world, or you can just walk around and do whatever. And like so, but you sort of agreed to incarnate into this particular plane at this time,
and because of the urgency of the times, the soul is saying, "Look, we could meander around the meadowlands.
Yeah,
I'd like you to take the steep path up the mountain because we need you to ascend and to realize who you are, so that you can be of service to others. It's a planetary need. This is not." Just you being a better person.
Yeah.
So therefore, the acceleration of the evolutionary movement comes from the creative tension inside the being that is the planet. That's how I hold it.
Yeah, I always go back to something you said this in a very early podcast. It was like this is an all souls on deck.
Yes,
and I feel like that's. I think if you really do an introspection, you've been here enough times, you've played this game enough times, that this time is different. There's something about the feel of this particular go around, this particular era that we're in, and it's calling all of us in a way. And I guess we're as a group taking this sort of initiation together.
Yes, and this next sentence emphasizes what I just said. It said, "A brief period of organized effort, and at the end, death, is of more vital usefulness today than a futile doing of the things a man feels like doing in a leisurely way and then meandering feebly down the years."
That sort of calls into question our whole concept of like
leisure,
retirement. Yeah. Which we were talking about this before the podcast, but you were telling me about a particular doctor who is in his 80s and he's going to retire so that he can do more doctoring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're never through. You've just changed the nature of how you offer who you are.
Yeah.
If you lay down, then you're just inviting the process of decomposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a fascinating kind of separation between like this idea of vocation or work, or we have the concept that you're not your job, but then like also, well, are you working at are you doing a service? Are you leading a thoughtful, contemplative life, or what's your
I
function?
remember because I lived in Scandinavia in the
Yeah.
60s and early 70s. And the Swedes are great with statistics. They have a central statistical bureau which puts out, and like if they come up with something that is a fact, they make it a law. But they did this survey that if after retirement you hadn't gotten some sort of hobby or some sort of service activity in your life, the likelihood is within 3 years you would start to degenerate.
Yeah. Yeah, because meaning, belonging, and purpose. I mean, these are, um, yeah, I guess this plane is not meant for leisure. I mean, like you do want to stop and smell the roses, but the point is that you were doing something when you stopped, and then you continue to walk.
Right.
You stop, smell the roses, but then you continue walking. You know.
And then it basically said, look, we can give you all this wisdom, but it basically in the end is up to you because you are the agents of the soul of humanity on earth, and the soul of humanity is an agent of the planetary soul. So this next one says, good must ultimately triumph, but the enlightened ones do not know what the immediate future holds for humanity because humanity determines its own destiny. So the free will, we can hear the call and say, nah.
Yeah.
And if we say no, it's not a regenerative, it's a degenerative cycle we opt into.
Mm-hmm.
And my sense is that because we don't have the daring, the courage to let go, to die and be reborn, we are in a degenerative cycle and doing our best to keep it alive. Whether it's by inflating the economic figures or cosmic surgery or whatever, I'm saying we're trying to make the form look good.
When it might be time to retire the form and move on to the next thing.
And give birth to the next form from a new level of consciousness.
Right.
So renewal only takes place if there's a new level of consciousness that's giving birth to the form. Otherwise, there's a repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you and I know is if you're in a pattern, and why do I keep repeating? Why is this happening to me? Well, because that's what you're putting out.
Yeah.
So we got a few more before we've completed our meal here at the restaurant at the end of the universe. This is from Discipleship in the New Age.
Okay.
And in fact, the rest of the quotes that we're going to be using come from Discipleship in the New Age, both Volume 1 and Volume 2. One of the first lessons which a disciple needs to learn is that where he thinks he is strongest and where he finds the most satisfaction is very frequently the point of greatest danger and of weakness.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, this is a classic story of where someone wanders into the dojo and they think that they know how to do something and use your opponent's strength against them. It's I sometimes think about the universe in terms of our plane as an instructional. It's kind of like like sort of a balancing algorithm. Like it's so wherever you push, instead of sometimes pushing back, it'll let you fall forward. Or if you have to find that sort of balance.
It's teaching you the consequences of your actions and your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's what the mirroring does. And then you have to decide, do I like what I've created? Is it in resonance with what I feel I'm called to do by my soul, which is part of a greater aspect of the planet? So that's where you start to fine tune and listen to what is really calling me this lifetime beyond survival. What does it take to become a co-creative partner with life, in life?
Yeah.
And that's what we're learning. And then it continues, Joey. I would remind you that the life of a disciple is ever a life of risks and of danger, entered into willingly and deliberately in the cause of spiritual unfoldment and the service of humanity. This is not recklessness.
Mm.
This is just that, hey, nothing's going to hold us back. No forms or fear of death is going to stop the revelation of the truth.
Right. Yeah, and the sort of search for safety is not the search
No.
for enlightenment. That's for sure. At least in my experience, you know, this is a trepidatious path, but it's the one worth going down. I think that's why we're all here, especially if you're a person listening to this podcast, drawn to this sort of this lineage. It's
I remember when I was at Findhorn in the community there, um, David Spangler wrote an open letter back in 1973, and in it he said, be very careful about saying that you're under attack from evil or dark forces. He said, often it could be that you've called forth the unredeemed aspects of yourself and you're facing your own darkness.
Mm.
Now, there are other times when if you're doing good work, then the opposition says, well, we'll test you.
Mm-hmm.
So this next paragraph from Discipleship in the New Age sort of explores that a little more. That which appears is not always that which truly is. That which rends and disrupts the personality life is frequently the agent of release, if rightly apprehended. That which will emerge when the forces of life have penetrated the world darkness will demonstrate the nature of the undying human spirit. So this is how do we break ourselves away from the imprisonment of the spirit and matter, which is the whole story of crucifixion and resurrection on the earth. That's what we're here to do on this particular planet.
Mm.
So there's a whole podcast inside each one of these sentences.
There really
Joey.
are. There really are. So yeah, I don't feel like we're like crossing over them. It's just this is a nice kind of exploration of this. And
Right, and if you like what you're sampling, get the cookbook
yeah,
and make your own dinner.
yeah, that's true. That's the whole point of this, right? I mean, pick up a copy of Ponder on this, and then eventually make your way into the other texts, and
Here's the wise elder speaking again to us.
okay.
Go your own way with strength and silence, and do that which your soul demands. Let not the lesser voices of the loved and near deflect you from your progress upon the path of service. You belong now to the world and not to a handful of your fellow men.
Ooh.
This is the most difficult one to digest.
Yeah. This is a.
It doesn't mean you don't care,
Yeah.
but it means that your decisions are made from the deepest place possible and not, well, if I do that, somebody in my family is not going to approve of me.
Yeah.
If my soul says do it, you do it.
Mm. Yeah.
This is the toughest thing I've bumped into in my life.
Yeah. This is a definite one. I mean, this is anyone that's taken that leap before the net appears know this very well.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sometimes go your own way but if you're not following your purpose.
Well, it sounds a little uncaring.
It does, yeah, but it's
not.
it's not.
It's impersonal love, which is unconditional and non-attached.
Yeah.
And the next sentence just continues to elaborate. The reactions of others are not your responsibility. It is your responsibility to give them strength and detachment. Shoulder not, therefore, responsibilities which are not yours.
Mm.
It doesn't mean you don't care and you don't help out, but you don't rescue.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to choose your battles, because when you take on someone else's demons, you're taking on someone else's demons. And I don't mean that in like, the demons of Dungeons and Dragons. I mean the demon of a responsibility or a karmic responsibility.
But there is a stage where you do take on
Yeah.
the demons of the collective field. When you've reached a certain point of integration, then you're ready to say, I'm not just here for myself. I can be an agent of salvation and redemption for the field, not just for me.
Yeah, that's when you belong to the world.
And that's when you become a world savior, or
world server.
not in a
Yeah.
rescuing the world, but your life then liberates all whom you touch. It doesn't have personal preferences. Oh, I'm going to be nice to my family, and everyone else I'm going to hold at arm's length.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Or the other way around.
Yeah, that's often the case, isn't it? As we find.
Oh, gosh. So we've got a couple more before we bring this to a close.
Yeah.
These are the last morsels on the table we're going to be nibbling at. This one, it says, the cry of the neophyte is, tell me, then I will change. I will accept anything that is said, but tell me. The cry of the disciple is, aid the work. Forget yourself. The world needs you.
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the person that first comes to these teachings. That they want to know. Tell me everything. But not before you're ready. But just forget that and go to work. Chop the wood, carry water.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, aid the work.
And then this other piece of wisdom that they impart: to be truly effective, you must cultivate the attitude of being only a clear, unobstructed channel. And you must not block that channel with your ideas, your plans, and your physical plane activities. But then the personality says, well, what about me?
Yeah.
What about me? Well, the what about me is taken care of when the soul controls the outer form.
Right.
It's like the child goes into a candy store and wants this, wants that, wants that. No, you'll be fed, don't worry. But this is the food that you don't need at the moment. It's going to send you into hyperspace.
Yeah. I really love this. To truly be affected, you must cultivate the attitude of being only a clear, unobstructed channel. Thank you.
That also means non-reactive, Joey.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is lifetimes to practice that one.
Right. Yeah. This is high ideals. This is holding yourself to a much higher standard, and it's something that you maybe don't achieve in one lifetime, but it's the most worthy of North Stars, I think.
Right. And then it follows up by saying, so are you cooperating with the plan, with capital P, or in reality with your own plans? Doesn't mean you can't do what you want to do, but in the end, the soul's dictate is to carry out a greater purpose of which it is a part. So when you grow up, when I was a child, I played with, now I put away childish things. It's like there's a point of maturity where you go, no, I don't need that anymore. What fulfills my life is the act of giving, because I now understand it's in giving that we receive. Now that could sound like just an empty platitude. But if anyone who's listening to this podcast wants to test it out for a week, go into every situation and say, what can I give? I've used this distillation before of the Buddhist teaching. It's like, think, say, and do that which is kind, helpful, and true. So use that as a mantra and see, does it make a difference?
It really does. I mean, not to give the plot away, but it really does.
And then the last crumbs on the table. At the center of a great tornado is a point of peace. Thus does the story go. It can be found, and thus it is with all the storms of life. They lead to peace if you are not a leaf.
And this one particularly resonates with me.
It's interesting because it says place of peace. And we've mentioned before that peace isn't this inert, nothing's happening space. It's dynamic equilibrium.
Yeah.
And those of you who are familiar with the esoteric philosophy know that we talk about Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. It's that part of the planetary consciousness that is the repository of purpose. Shambhala, the will. Another name for the center where the will of God is known is the center of true peace.
Mm.
That's its secondary name.
Yeah.
So peace is standing and acting in alignment with deep purpose.
Yeah, it's also interesting that, if you are not a leaf, because you have to have the strength to not be blown off course.
Well, if you're a leaf and the tree is shedding its leaves, you're going to get blown away.
Yeah.
If you're the trunk anchored in the soil, I'm thinking of the Kabbalistic tree of life,
Mm-hmm.
roots in heaven.
Yeah.
When your roots are in heaven, you don't get your leaves blown off.
Yeah. That's right.
So we've come to the end of this particular offering.
Yeah.
And I feel somewhat replete. I think now I've got to digest this and put it
Mhm.
into action. But I know it requires a little bit more reflection and time for digestion. But what is this sort of 4-part walk through and walk around the buffet table
Mhm.
given to you, Joey?
For me, it's given this again. I've said this throughout this podcast that this is the section I first found my way in and that I returned to, and it's such a reminder of so many things in life, that these little signs, everything from Douglas Adams' "Don't Panic" to to talks from Alan Watts about being like water, and like all of these things are, it's when you move away from the platitudes towards the action. And for me, like, this is like such the meat of the buffet. Like, this is where
Yeah.
all the action happens. But it's a combination of intentionality, will, letting go, and the right use of your actions. So it's like
Right.
if you're like maybe a cluster in a computer in a distributed computer network, you know. Unlike those computers which don't have agency, we're constantly being asked if we want to participate. Do you want to participate? Do you want to participate? And we kind of inherently say no, 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 because we're enthralled with this illusion that we're in. But it's when you start to say yes to that question and you start to let go of your attachment to this illusion, that's when things really open up.
And when you say yes, it unleashes the power of life, which tests your current forms.
Mm-hmm.
And you may find that your current forms don't measure up to the requirements
Yeah.
of a distortion-free expression of your soul. And it's easy to get depressed and think, oh my God, I failed.
Mm-hmm.
And we said before, there is no such thing as failure. Failure is the experience of learning what works and doesn't work.
Yeah. It's such a reshaping of everything, and
Yeah.
as someone that loves semantics, this appeals to me but rather than like semantics as like an activity or like doing a Sudoku or something,
Right.
it's like actually how do I use these concepts, these words, to actually move forward in action?
Well, when you realize that each one of us is a living Sudoku, we are the Word made flesh, and we're being asked to spell out
Mm-hmm.
the dream of the Creator.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to be articulate
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, mentally, and also artistically.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot from this, because these are things that I've read before. The real test is when I choose to put them into action. Then I see the so-called gap between what I aspire to and where I'm currently at. And as long as I hold that as a learning gap that has to be bridged rather than the gap of failure and get down on myself or get down on somebody else because they're not performing to the standards I think they should.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think that's probably a more accurate way for me, of what actually happens is I come back to these things and I review, and then I do a sort of a self-review since the last time I read it. And sometimes it's I'm doing good. And sometimes it's oof.
Ooh, we've got a long way to go. But as long as the long way to go isn't a put down of self and others.
Yeah. But it's honesty. That's one of the hardest things to do, is be honest with yourself and to really give yourself a thorough evaluation of like how you behaved, how you interacted. And the thing is not to punish yourself, but it's to give yourself that room and space and permission to grow,
And I always use the phrase, observe, witness without blame or judgment.
Yeah. Okay.
But then you're looking at what is,
Mm-hmm.
not what's not happening because I thought it should happen. It's what is. And then you can say, okay,
Yeah.
there's a gap between what's currently happening and what I choose to have happen. How do I close that gap?
Mm.
What fine-tuning do I need?
Yeah.
And so this is where the ponder on this book really helps me to recalibrate.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And to think that's, I think
What
that's,
do we do after a meal like this,
yeah,
Joe?
I mean, to think that's just the beginning. That's just the opening of the book.
Or maybe we go for an evening walk.
Yeah. I think that's important. To get out and move a little bit and to, let this stuff digest.
Yeah.
It's important. And there's no substitute for action in terms of even if it's just allowing yourself to contemplate the possibility of something different.
Right. And the beauty of this is that you and I are not here promoting a belief.
Mm.
We are doing exactly what Alice Bailey has recorded the words of the Tibetan saying, look, my task is to give out the ageless wisdom teachings wherever it can be received. And if it doesn't resonate with you, just walk on by.
Mm-hmm.
If it resonates with you, don't stop there.
Yeah.
Put it into action.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's what we're really saying. We're offering these podcasts as a stimulation for taking the next step in your life, whatever that is, as long as it's your conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
We're not telling you what to do, but just sort of nudging and saying, this is the time when it's all souls on deck.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, all right, Michael. This has been kind of a run of my favorite episodes because this is one of my favorite sections, and it's I'm just glad we were able to ponder on this together.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right. Thank you, Michael.